Cool. So let's get started. I thought what I'd do first is just kind of do an overview of Google Analytics. Those of you who attended Daniel's session, you would have kind of gone through this, but those of you who maybe haven't used Google Analytics before, I just thought I'd take you through Universal Analytics beforehand. One second, my deck is not in the right order. That's good. Here we go. Sorry about that. Okay, so what can you track in Universal Analytics? So first of all, you can track in real time. So this gives you right here, right now, how many users are on your site in this second. And this can give you data over location, over traffic sources, the sort of content that they're using, and also the events and conversions that they're making in this second. So you can log onto your analytics right now and see that all happening now. So the content aspect is where they are within your site. So maybe someone's on a blog page, maybe someone's on one of your services pages, and you can also see where in the world they are, and also how they've got to your site. So maybe some of them have come through Google search, maybe some of them have come through Facebook, Instagram. This is where you can kind of see all of that in real time. And it is kind of like, it's like watching TV for analytics. It's really, really interesting. And I have been known to sort of watch the real-time report and actually get a bit angry when someone drops off and not make any conversions. But it's quite a fun thing to watch if you're into that sort of stuff. Maybe you're not. I can be a bit weird with stuff like that. Secondly, we've got audience. So this is where you can start to analyze your audience's engagement on your site over periods of time. So real time is in the here and now. These next reports, you can start to play around with your date ranges. So you can do anything from a day ago all the way to 5 years ago, if that's when you had your Google Analytics set up. And you can also start to compare date ranges as well. So you can compare month on month, quarter by quarter, and things like that. And in this report, you'll find things like your users, your page views, sessions. So when we talk about a session, it's when the user sort of comes on your site and their engagement and their interaction with your site right the way through to their exit. So that's an engagement. Yeah, that's a session, sorry. You've got your pages per session. So averagely, how many pages your users are viewing per that engaged session. And also bounce rate, which is when somebody comes on your site and leaves on the page that they entered and they don't progress forward anymore. And then obviously your time on site is your average of complete time that all your users spend on your site. You can also find in this report geographical information as well as interest and technology. So it kind of groups your users into their interests based on like a cohort, and then your technology as well refers to things like what iOS they're using, what browser they're using. Maybe they're using Google Chrome, maybe they're using Internet Explorer or Firefox. Anything like that, you can sort of find it there. And it's really interesting as well because you can start to attribute behaviors and engagement metrics against those and start to really map out where best is your sort of resources per. Then you've got acquisition. So this is where you can track and analyze how your users got to your site and how they interact with your site. So this is going back to sort of the Google organic, your social, referral, all of those things are called acquisition sources. So maybe you're running a massive email campaign at the moment and you want to see how many users came to your site, how long they spent on your site, and how many sessions they had on your site. This is where you can find all of that information, as well as looking at organic, social, etc., etc. You can also look at your Google Ads analysis and Google Search Console as well as social analysis. But these reports do require further setting up, and this is all in Universal Analytics. You've also got behavior. So this is where you can track and analyze your users, how your users interact with your site and what areas and pages get the most traffic. So this is where we can look at your blogs, your service pages, how many homepage visits you get a month, and then you can really start to attribute all of the engagement metrics against those. Because I find this is a really good report to kind of look at you sort of find that, oh, actually, there are sites that are working way harder than you ever thought they were. And there's parts of your sites that you thought were working hard that you're like, oh my gosh, that's not bringing me any traffic. And this is where you can start to attribute, perhaps you had a massive spike in traffic in March or April. And this is where you can start to see what pages drove that spike in traffic, what was the engagement metrics around that, and how did all the users get there. And then you can start to map out that user journey. You can also look at your site speed on here. So a really, really big thing at the moment is your site speed. It has to be quick enough. There is something called the Core Web Vitals, and these are stuff that you have to start looking at within your strategy to really start to improve. So that's where you can sort of find that information and start to really map out how you can improve your site speed. And you've also got site search. So this refers to how people are getting to your site, what terms they're searching. And it's actually really good to sort of reflect on these terms and think, okay, what's the intent behind these terms, and start to map that out too. You can also find your events in here as well. So these are goals that you would have set up in your conversions and goals part of your Google Analytics. And then you can track them and find all the reports here, as well as in this conversions part. So this is where you can also track and analyze your goals on site. Like I said, these have to be set up by you, but these can be form fill outs, maybe add to cart, or any other sort of conversion that you deem appropriate on your site. Maybe if you're a holiday site, you've got book a holiday, or maybe if you're more of an inquiry-led site, this is your inquiry form fill outs. Or if you're just more of on the interaction side, this can be your button clicks, video plays, things like that. You can also find your e-commerce tracking in here too. So if you are an e-commerce site, this is where you can start to set up your values and things like that for your reference. And this is where you'll find all the value information too in this report. But like I said, this is all on Universal Analytics. But now what we'll do is we'll move on to GA4, what you're really here for. And what I want to warn you is you might have to forget about everything I've just told you to learn about the new GA4. Now, it seems daunting, and even as someone who uses Google Analytics on a day-to-day basis, I am still learning this tool. So this is not going to take you through all of the really nitty-gritty stuff. This is all the top-level stuff that you guys can and will use on a day-to-day basis. So Google Analytics 4 came around in October 2020, and it's probably one of their biggest updates yet. So it's designed for comprehensive user analysis. So when we refer to single session reporting, that's essentially how Universal Analytics measures the user's data. And I'll go on to talk about this a little bit later, but essentially the whole way that the users are tracked and analysed has now changed on Google Analytics 4. So in an essence, Google Analytics 4 is the latest update of Google Analytics. And what it does is it combines mobile app and website usage data for a more unified reporting. So what that means is if you have a mobile app and you have a website, then you can combine the reporting together. You can still use it if you have a website, and you can use it if you only have an app. So you have to be using Google Analytics GA4, because in a couple of years, I think, this will become the only way to report on Google Analytics. And that's really, really important. And like I say, GA4 is just the 4th version of Google Analytics. They haven't been very creative with their name. Universal Analytics sounded really nice and shiny and new, whereas GA4 is just kind of like, oh, stick a 4 on it because it's the 4th version. So yeah, that's it in an essence. So what's changed? There's 16 notable changes. And don't worry, I'm not going to take you through all of these because they vary from more cosmetic changes all the way to kind of really technical changes as well. So you've got things like your reporting interface, which is just the way it looks and feels, the measurement model, so the way that they actually track data, your tracking IDs. So that's when you set up your Google Analytics and you have that access code and you have your UA code. That's no longer now. They've changed that to a G code and a measurement ID. So that's essentially the code that you implement on places to give the website access to your Google Analytics. You've got user and event data retention. You've got refined and even better e-commerce reporting, attribution modeling, debugging. And as you can see, the further that I go, the more that they get kind of irrelevant to new users. Things like BigQuery, which is for SQL developers, it's not going to be appropriate even for me. So what I'm going to do now is sort of take you through those changes. But ultimately, what GA4 has been created for is flexibility and ease of use. The whole new look and feel is easy, it's simple, and it takes the weight off your shoulders, and I'll show you how. So first of all, I'm going to take you through how to set up GA4. So when you log into your Universal Analytics, you're going to go to your admin tab at the bottom. In that, it will then bring up this screen. So you're going to go to the middle column here, next to your property, and you're going to click on Create Property. I've used what some of our guys here, Certa, to set this up, and you're going to click Create Property. Next, what it's going to do is it's going to bring up this property setup wizard. So what this is, it's just a really quick and simple setup method. And what you're going to do is you're going to put in your business name, and then it's going to ask you for some business details. Please just make sure that it says create a Google Analytics property. But then what you're going to do is you're going to put in your business details. So you'll put your business name in, you'll put your reporting time zone in. So if you're in the UK, if you're in the USA, you know what to do in that respect. Then it's going to ask you for things like your how many employees, just really, really basic information that you guys will know off the top of your head. You won't have to do any digging. And then you're going to complete that process. Then what will happen is that you'll have two new reporting views in your Google Analytics, and you'll find that you have your normal reporting view in your Universal Analytics, and then you'll have your GA4 reporting view. What you're then going to do is the same process. You're going to go into your Google Analytics, a GA4. You're then going to go back to the same place, admin, in the middle property. What you're going to see here is a new entity called data streams. And this is where you're going to set up either your iOS app, your Android app, or your website. And you can set these up as you wish. You're then going to click web. So all this is going to do is ask you to put in your URL, your stream name, which is just exactly what you're going to call it. So I would just call it your website name. And then if you just click on for enhanced metrics. And I'll show you the back end a little bit later so that you can see all of this, and we can kind of go through where to find things so you can actually attribute that to what I'm saying, because it's probably not making a lot of sense right now. So once that's all complete, you're then going to have all of this information in this box here. So you'll have your stream name, so your stream URL, your stream name, and then your measurement ID too. So all your measurement ID is like I said before, it just gives you access to places to actively start kind of gathering that information to actually input into Google Analytics. Your final step is then to go on Google Tag Manager. And what you're going to do in Google Tag Manager is you're going to go to your tag section, you're going to create a new tag. And in that, in your tag type, you're going to click Google Analytics GA4 configuration. And what this is going to do is it's going to set up your GA4. And this is the simplest way to set it up. So there's no more inputting any code in the header. There's no more coding to this. It's really, really simple and easy. If you remember that the measurement tag, the G tag that we've just created, you're then just going to copy and paste it into the measurement ID. Just make sure that you're sending a page view event when the configuration loads. What's that? It's just going to set it up for you automatically. And then in your triggering tag, you're going to just click all page views. So we know that Google Analytics 4 is going to trigger on all pages. And that's it. You're going to save it, publish it, and then Google Analytics 4 is set up. But we will go through this. I'll take you guys through this so that you can see a live demo of how we actually set this up for you guys on site. So that's it. It sounds complicated because I think I'm drawing it out, but it is simple and easy and doesn't require any more coding, which is a big tick for me. So once we've set that up, we're going to start using Google Analytics 4. And the first thing you'll notice is it's completely changed visually. It's now more refined. It's much more visual in terms of the way that everything is placed. So you can just see here, here's your universal analytics. This is what you guys will be used to using on a day-to-day basis. And here is GA for you. So you can instantly see the changes that have happened across just on a forefront when you log in. And then your menus changed. So everything I took you through in the beginning, where we spoke about audience and acquisition in real time, that's all changed. So first of all, real time has changed because real time is now not in the here and now, it's in the last 30 minutes. So it's any activity that has happened in the last 30 minutes on your site. So it's not actually real time, it's last 30 minutes time, which I still don't really understand. So I'm going to take you through the menus kind of like I did in the beginning, and then yeah, you guys can, like I said, if you've got any questions or you want to sort of raise any points or anything, please do so in the chat and we can sort of discuss those as well. So under acquisition, this is where you can find your how the traffic sources. So you can see how people have got to your site via mediums. So what that refers to is your organic, social, referral. So it's very, very top level stuff. It's not going to tell you the nitty gritty where they've actually come from. And your traffic acquisitions show you via source medium. So what we mean by source medium is organic Google, organic Bing, social Facebook, social LinkedIn. And what that is going to do is, instead of just saying, oh, we've had X amount of users from social, it's now going to show you, okay, LinkedIn is our most strongest suit over the past 6 months versus Facebook, Instagram, etc., etc. So that's what it's going to do. It's going to show you a little bit more granular detail in terms of your traffic sources. And you can also find your audiences here as well. You've got your engagement. So in engagement, this is where you'll find your events. So we'll go into events in a little bit, and also your pages and screens. So this is where you'll find, you know, blogs, how your blogs are performing, how your homepage is performing, etc., etc. This is where you'll find all of that stuff. And obviously you've got an overview in there as well, which will just give you a general overview. You've got monetization. So what we're doing here is we're looking at e-commerce purchases and in-app purchases. So sometimes you might download an app and it's free on the forefront, but then you start using it and then it suddenly pings you with a subscription option for you to sign up. This is where you can track sort of that stuff if you've got a model like that. And sometimes apps that your kids are using, and then they buy loads of coins, and then suddenly you've got 500 quid at the end of the month because they've bought loads of these coin things. This is where you'll find all of that information if you have an app model like that. Your e-commerce purchases is obviously, if you own a website, you can start to attribute sort of a value against purchases or a value against goals, and that's where you can start tracking all of that stuff. And then you've got your retention. So your retention looks at retention and engagement from your users by a certain group. So this just groups them into different categories and then gives you all of that information as well. It's a really good report, but there is a better report coming later on in the presentation. So we've got our measurement models. So the measurement models, this is what's changed. So I've tried to summarize it as actions speak louder than page views. So the way that Universal Analytics measures data is through a measurement model based on sessions and page views. So it's very general data. It's someone coming on your site and viewing maybe 7 pages, but it's not really based on the events and the intent behind that user. Whereas Google Analytics 4, their measurement model is based on events and parameters. So it's conditions and events that users must take. So it's a lot more considered in terms of how users are using your site, what they're doing on your site, and that's how it's all collected. Instead of it being based on sessions and page views, which is just way too general in my opinion, this is based on how the user's engaging with your site and are they actually doing anything on your site too. the biggest thing that you'll probably notice is the engagement metrics side of things. So now there are a whole new set of engagement metrics, and these are called engagement. These are just the engagement metrics. And you've got engaged sessions, engagement rate, engaged sessions per user, and engagement time. So what this looks at is obviously your engaged sessions is all your engaged sessions. Your engagement rate is your engaged sessions divided by your sessions. Engaged sessions per user is sort of like your pages per session, but now it's just engaged sessions divided by users, and your engagement time is just how long people are spending on your site.
Sorry, Millie, just very quickly, we've had a question. I think it's a good time just to address that. It's from Rhiannon Miller, just asking, where do you actually paste the new code on your website to get everything activated?
Okay, so if you don't have Google Tag Manager set up, then what you can do is you can set that up. If you ask, either if you've got a web developer or something like that, you can give them the code to then implement on your website. But if you're, you're feeling techie, you're feeling a bit brave, you can actually take that code and implement it into the header of your website. So that's how you set up your Google Tag Manager. With GA4, once your Google Tag Manager is set up, you can actually start to implement it via there. And like I just showed you, and I'll show you in a second, after the break, you can start to sort of upload and do things via Google Tag Manager. So the only code that you should have to implement if you don't have Google Tag Manager is the Google Tag Manager code. So one thing that you'll notice is that bounce rate is no longer. So your bounce rate cannot be found in GA4, and this is because it has been replaced with engagement rate. So bounce rate is actually kind of a redundant metric now. So before, how it was tracked is that a user would come onto your site, and if they didn't progress past the first page that they entered on, and they left on that same page, they'd be seen as a bounce rate. But they may have kind of scrolled and taken in some of the information. But now, what's that has been replaced with is engagement rate. And you'll see in a second how much better it is in terms of conditions and parameters around meeting that. So yes. Engagement metrics. So for a user to actually qualify as engaged, they must do one or all of the following. So they must be engaged in a session for 10 seconds or more on your website. They must or fire a conversion event. So that's one of your goals. Maybe it's filling out a form, maybe it's making a purchase, maybe it's clicking a button, whatever you decide. And they must fire 2 or more page views or screen views. So what that means is if I've got 2 monitors and they got your site on both screens, then that means that they qualify. So they need to do one or all of these things. So it's a lot more considered, whereas before a session was just someone coming on your site, maybe they viewed 3 pages in 5 seconds and then they left. That would still qualify as a session, but it didn't really mean anything. Now it's much more considered. It's a lot more appropriate for what we're trying to achieve with our sites. So that takes me on quite nicely to event tracking. So the whole basis of Google Analytics 4 is events. It's based on events. It's based on what users are doing. And now events are way more easier and more flexible than ever. So if you're not familiar with events, an event is the user's interaction or activity with a web page element on your site or your mobile app. So the web page elements that you can be using on a day-to-day basis to actually track are button clicks, videos, and now with GA4 it's even better. So you can start to track things like plays and pauses, you can track things like skips, things like that. You can do form fill out, so you can check out how many people have filled out 50% of your form, take a look at the drop-off rate, take a look at how many completions you've had, etc., etc. You can take a look at your scroll bar data. So that will show you how far people are scrolling down your page, the page depth that they're getting to. Because what we're talking about here is actually getting people to engage with the whole of your site, not just the top part of your site. And the more that you start to interact with things like scroll depth and things like that, the better that your site will be and the interaction will be too. You can start to look at external link clicks. So I've been working with someone recently where they have an external sort of gateway. And from that, what we can do is we can start to track how many people from their site are going onto that external link, because that's a big part of their business model. And actually, in reality, sometimes we say, oh, we don't want to send any of our traffic elsewhere. But in some cases, it's relevant and appropriate. So that's where we can start to track our external link clicks and where we're actually sending people. We can track light boxes and pop-ups, things like that. And also images as well. So any interaction with images and stuff like that.
Sorry, Millie, just very quickly, could you chat a little bit more about the bounce rate? Elena's just asking about this, and if the rate change is to do with how bots versus real people might be visiting the site. But obviously there's quite a few things to consider about bounce rate, so perhaps we could go into that a little bit more.
Yeah, no, definitely. So essentially what people were finding is that it wasn't differentiating the two, essentially, because it's hard to tell whether it's a user that's just sitting dormant on your site or a bot that's sitting dormant on your site. So now what it's done is essentially sort of put in these metrics and these parameters that are essentially really hard for a bot to achieve if it's sort of trying to spam you or stuff like that. It now has to do these things to qualify. And with bounce rate, I don't know if I can go back without going forward. There we go. So with bounce rate, obviously, it was really good for a period of time. But now with our advanced metrics and advanced measurements, and people actually started to catch on that it was a bit of a redundant metric because it wasn't giving us anything that we sort of needed, whereas it's flipped it on its head now, and instead of it being bounce rate and people not engaging with your site, it's flipped it on its head with engagement rate, and it's a bit more accurate. It's obviously it's only just been introduced, so it's got a long way to go with people working out actually how to measure it against previous reports and things like that. But engagement rate will be better for, I think, everybody going forward. Did that answer the question? I don't know. Let me know if it didn't, and I'll try again.
Thumbs up. We've had a thumbs up.
Oh, bro. Okay, cool. So we've got some new types of events in GA4, and what these do is, like I said, it relieves the pressure massively off you, because essentially what it's doing on the main two, Google are doing all of the hard work, and we just get to sit back and relax. And there's only one that we actually have to put some effort in. So I'll talk you through those. So we've got enhanced measurement events. So when we set up our GA4, I told you to turn something on, which was your enhanced measurement events. Now, what this is essentially automatic events that are triggered on predefined user activity. So Google, what they do is when you set up your GA4, they have a certain amount of events that they will automatically track for you. So you can see here that we have our page views, scrolls, outbound link clicks, all of those things that I was speaking about being automatically tracked for me now. So I don't have to set anything up. I don't have to put any weird code on my site. It's literally all done for me. And it's so simple and easy to do. I couldn't really believe it at first, but it is that easy. Some things are too good to be true, but this is not. And where you can find all of this is under your engagement tab under events. So you can see here what we've got is we've got page views, user engagement, you see your session starts and also first visits. So you can see how many users versus your overall event count are first visitors. You can see your clicks, file downloads, if you've got any white papers and things like that on your site. This is a really good report to use, as well as your scrolls as well. So the scroll does require further setting up, but I can also send around some information about that afterwards if you do want to sort of set that up. And then obviously it visualizes it nicely for you versus each event, and also a nice scatter graph as well for you. So really quick and easy to sort of use, and sort of experts. Yeah, so Jenny, I've just seen your message. Are events linked to goal conversions in some way? Yes, they are. So with these new events, they are essentially the same as goal conversions. They're just automatic goal conversions that Google are setting up for you. You've also got recommended events. So these are events that Google recommends based on your business type. So say if you're a travel business, they'll have a set of recommended events for you for that. If you're e-commerce, they'll have a set recommended events for that. And this is all widely available that I've got a list of that I can send you all. So these don't automatically get triggered and logged unless you manually implement them. And
very quickly, could you just clarify any differentiation? We got a question about events and goal conversions, and just kind of clarification on the difference between sort of events and goals, and how those are actually linked, if you see what I mean. So what the end goal is and what the triggered event is.
That Jenny's question.
Yes. Yeah.
So I just said that they are the same thing essentially, just your events are your automatic ones and your goals are just an old term that Universal Analytics would use, but they're essentially the same thing. So yeah, recommended events, they're the ones that Google say I recommend to you based on your business type, but for the recommended events to work correctly, you must use the exact names and parameters as supplied by Google. So in the list that I'll send round, you'll see those jumbled up jargon and stuff that you probably won't understand, but this is just for the implementation process. And what I do, if you've got a web developer or you work with us guys, then we can actually start to set these up for you, and we'll probably understand it a lot more than you guys. I wouldn't expect you guys to understand. I mean, it took me a while to get my head around it as well. But then once you upload these ones, what it will do is it will trigger on Google, and then it will recognize that you've updated one of their recommended events. Quick question: if I manage multiple websites through the same login, do I have to set up GA4 for all sites, or can it? So setting up GA4 for all sites, you will have to do them all separately. You can't just do it all through one login. So if you've got 7 accounts on one Google Analytics, you will have to set up each 7 accounts as a different GA4. Just to note that down. Okay, and then you've got custom events. So your custom events are the things that you choose that you want to start tracking and analyzing on your sites. So Google recommends that before you do your custom events, you should make sure that there is not an automatic, enhanced, or recommended event that has already been provided for you. And then if you haven't, and you don't have your you don't have any of that stuff, and you still want the custom event, then you can go ahead and start implementing it. But it's always important to sort of check that there's already not a recommended event, because what the recommended event is going to do is going to give you all the resources to easily set it up, whereas a custom event is going to take a little bit more work to actually get it all set up and get all the right parameters sorted and things like that. So that actually takes me to my break, which is about 5-10 minutes early. But what we can do, I thought, we can go stretch our legs, grab a cup of tea, and then come back, recoup, and then I will take you through a live demo on Google Analytics 4. We can kind of try out some of the new reports and things like that, answer any questions that you guys might have about GA4 whilst we're on it, and then we will dive into all the other stuff. Does that sound good? Cool, brilliant. Thanks, guys. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second. Does anyone have any questions whilst they're here?
Well, I'll take the opportunity, while everyone's left. Hello again. This is all very new to me in terms of realizing that this is important. I know it was important. I've invested in Google with other things I've done, but we're launching a new business model. So I'm using Wix, because I did WordPress, and my mind just, I just thought I either get a degree in coding or I need to try something a bit easier. So is it to set all this up? This is going to sound like an idiot, so I'm glad everybody's left. So to set this up, is it as simple as looking at Google Tag Manager, setting that up, and then linking that to Wix somewhere?
Yeah, so in Wix there should be, so Wix is really good actually because it has really quick setup wizards. So I mean, their blogs are amazing, so their help is really, really good. But there should be a really quick setup wizard for Google Tag Manager. And then it will just be a case of either finding where the header text is in the back end and then just implementing that code in there, right, or using a quick setup wizard to then link the two accounts. So it's really simple and easy on Wix. It sounds a bit complicated, but once you get all the information, it's quite good. But there will be a blog on it. I think I actually do have a blog to hand.
Oh, ping it over, dear. Ping it over.
Let me have a look. So yeah, here we go. I'll just send this over to you.
Thanks, Sam.
It is just really, there we go. I think I've started okay. I've just sent that to you on the chat. If you just read that, and then you can kind of see how to set up your Google Tag Manager. It's sad. Like, I think because it involves some sort of code, sometimes it doesn't sound as accessible. It sounds like it's going to be tricky in some way, but Google are actually getting really, really good at setting up their products for ease of use now, which is amazing because then it kind of takes the pressure off us to set everything up.
Yeah, and lucky for me, you know, we're starting this for the new website as well, and we're driving traffic differently to what I used to. So this is going to be starting. So this is why I'm here, because I thought actually to start from scratch, to have this set up to start with, it's actually quite good not to decipher through what you've done in the past and trying to work out, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, I've taken up a lot of your time. I'm going to go and grab a quick coffee. Bye.
Do that.
Hi, Millie.
Hiya.
Hello, Millie. Hi. I have a question. I'm actually not sure whether I've got Google G4, G4 Universal or G4. Is that right?
So you're confused as to whether you've got Universal Analytics or GA4.
So that's what I've got up on my screen. Okay.
Okay. So if you go into your admin tab at the bottom.
Okay, hold on. Yeah.
And I'm just going to try and make you bigger, actually. There we go. And then, so does that say data streams under property user management?
Property settings, property. Yes, it does.
Yeah, so you have GA4.
Right. Okay, so I didn't need to do anything then.
No, you're all set up.
I'm already set up, because I was looking at this going, okay. And we've only recently set it up.
Yeah.
Well, I set it up, and then I had the back end WordPress guy who looks after my website, link it all in, or whatever codes that were in there. So the reason why I'm here today is because I've got it then clearly, so that's good. We're on the right track. Yeah. It's just now learning from you a little bit of understanding what I've been looking at in the last 2 weeks or so.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what we'll go through after the break. Is I'm going to take you through, actually using it, because it's all very well me telling you where things are and how to do things, and actually me going through it with you, and actually you potentially playing along as well. Like it will help you, and it's all important to know. And I think the more that I think it's quite common for sometimes we set up websites and we just kind of leave them running, and we kind of think, oh well, they're there, and we don't pay attention to the really important nitty-gritty data that makes a difference, and just taking a look at it on a monthly basis will actually start to map out our objectives and our strategies in a much more sort of better and structured way, because sometimes our websites don't work alongside our strategy and objectives. And that's actually what I talk about in the second half, is how to mirror the two, which seems like a really simple task, but actually when we take a look at this data and we see, oh, actually, okay, I've put all my money into social, and actually my SEO is working really, really well with that effortlessly, then you can start to weigh up where you put your resource and things like that.
Okay. What time do you wrap this up? Because I've got a meeting at 11 that I need to attend.
So I wrapped this up at about 11:30, but we are recording it, so I can always send this to you.
Right, okay. And if not, I'm going to try and move my, I didn't think this went past 11 for some reason. I'll try and move my 11 o'clock now. That's what I'll do.
Well, I am about 10 minutes early. So I kind of whizzed through that. And now I'm thinking, oh, did I go too fast for everyone? So.
No, it's fine. Absolutely fine. I was just sitting there going, which one do I have? It was all great until now. Now I have the right thing. So that's great. Thank you.
No worries.
All right, ciao. Bye.
Bye.
I've got a
Hi,
quick
Millie.
question,
Oh, go on, Darren. Go on, you go next.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it was just a quick question. If you've got the existing Google Analytics and then you switch to G4, does it effectively only start counting the new measures from then, or does it have any sense of looking backwards?
It does. I think it starts from when you set it up. So it's better to get it set up sooner rather than later, and also potentially start exporting any old data that you want to keep as well. You will also have to set up your goals and things like that again, so they don't carry over, unfortunately.
And can you dual run at all? Or
yeah.
Once you can?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what we at WAGADA are doing, and we're trying to implement that across all of our clients. So we're dual running, and then as early on as possible, and then from that we'll then start to roll it out as soon as they go full on for GA4.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Thank you very much.
No worries. Sharon, did you have a question?
I do. Hang on. Hi there. So I'm similar to Maria. I'm not sure. Dee at WAGADA manages my SEO and everything, and I'm not sure when I'm looking at this whether I'm doing it on my phone at the moment, whether I'm on GA4 or not.
Let me check for you. I think I've got yours here. It's Vintique, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. You have Universal Analytics.
I don't have GA4 yet.
No. So what we can do is we'll set that up for you. We're looking at rolling that out soon, aren't we, Dan? Across all GA4 accounts. Yeah.
Sorry, I was just on mute. Yeah. So it's because obviously it's a slow kind of rollout, broadly speaking, anyway, in terms of the landscape. So, but yeah, we will be across all accounts because the fundamental thing I think is that it focuses in on the data that really matters. That's the difference. It's taking the important user experience kind of metrics and just taking it that one step beyond the technical side of things. So it's in terms of ease of use and speed of use, it's far more, I think it's actually far more accessible for business owners and individuals as well. And I think that's the aim, because Google must realize just how many small SMEs or sole traders are looking to access analytics and understand that it is far more consumer friendly as well.
So I'm best to not even worry about looking at my analytics at the moment on my website, because the the graphs and the data you're looking at is different. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, so I'll log out. No, because I was as you were going through that, I was rapidly going through. Well, I can't see any of this stuff on mine. I was like, I can't see it. So but would you send me the recording so that when I am up and running, I can redo this training with my GA4? Yeah. Okay, perfect. That was my question. I thought I was lost, but I'm not. Thank you.
No worries.
Thank you very much.
Has anyone else got any questions that they want to pop through whilst we've got another couple of minutes? Looks like I'm drinking out of a jam jar. It's not, I'm just trying to be cool with my mason jars. Not very practical, but they didn't come with any of the lids, so they've got the lip, but no lid.
Just very quickly as well, I popped a message on the chat feed, but if anybody does want to add their LinkedIn or their business details, don't hesitate to do that in the chat feed. And then at the end, anybody can access that by saving that chat. So if you did want to put your details out there to connect or to offer for other people to connect with you on LinkedIn or by email, don't hesitate to do that. That's absolutely fine. What we'll do, we'll just wait on some people to just literally perhaps log their videos back in and give us a quick thumbs up, just so that we can see that people are back before we move on with the second part.
Has anyone got an app? That's what I'm interested about. Has anyone actually got a mobile app that they're looking to use on GA4? Or is it just websites?
I'd love an app. I'm looking into it, but I keep chickening out every time.
I think I see. I know my ex-colleague Hamza is here, and he has an app. So Hamza, will you be using GA4 to track your app usage? Cool.
Amelia, we probably will be, but as you know, our app is
yeah,
pretty useless.
A little bit of development work and we'll get there.
Just a little bit.
Okay, shall we continue? Okay, cool, brilliant. So let's take a look at GA4. That's good. So here we go. So when you log on, like I said before, the whole user interface has changed. So what you can see here is the home page on GA4. But before we do that, I'm going to take you through how to set it up. So if you go on to your Universal Analytics, and the way that you can actually differentiate whether you have GA4 or not is under your name on your properties and apps, you'll see the UA code, and that's where you'll see your whether you have Universal Analytics or GA4. We've also called ours WAGADA GA4 as well, just so we know in the forefront which one we're going into. So we're going to go into all website data. So now I'm in Universal Analytics, and I'm going to go to admin. And here you can obviously see all of your property settings and things like that, and then just click create property. And it's as simple and easy as that. And here you can just type in your company name, or your reporting time zone and British, currency and things like that. And then just about your business. So select your industry, whatever sort of you work in, your business size, and then how do you intend to measure? And then what you can do is just create it. And then that will bring you up to this data stream to start collecting data. Then you're just going to click web, type in my website, and then this is your enhanced measurement tools that we were speaking about. So this is where, you can turn it off if you want to, but this will kind of track all of those automatic all of those metrics. Also, just make sure that this HTTPS thing here, just make sure that that is HTTPS and not HTTP. Just HTTPS just is security-wise better, and all of your websites will have security on them. So that's just what that signifies. And then just create your stream. And it is literally as simple and easy as that. So now what you're going to do is you're going to go onto your Google Tag Manager. We've got some questions coming through.
Don't worry, Millie. These are just people sharing contact details so that everyone can access it afterwards. I'll let you know if a question comes in.
So this is Google Tag Manager. If you haven't got Google Tag Manager set up, you won't be able to get into this at the moment. But what you're going to do is once you have got it set up, you're going to head over to your entity, if I can find ours. And then, so when you enter your Google Tag Manager, this is what you should see. You won't have as many accounts as us because you see half of you are not an agency. And then you're going to go over to your tags, new tag, And then this screen will come up. So what you're going to do is just going to name it GA4 config, and then your tag configuration. So this is where you're just going to click in here, and this helpful menu will come up. So you'll have your Google Analytics GA4 configuration, and this is what I was speaking about. So you're just going to click that, go back to your analytics and copy this measurement ID and pop it in there. Just make sure that's ticked, and you're going to do nothing else. You're then going to click on triggering, click all pages, and save it. Submit your changes, and then the changes will publish in your Google Analytics. So you will be able to see that shortly. If I just, you can see here that we're already in it, and it will start tracking all of that data. So it is really, really simple and easy. And like I say, you guys can do this with the help and the setup of Google Tag Manager. So now that we're in GA4 and we have our user property set up, let's take a look at how we actually use this platform and what we can do with it. So on the home page, this is just a general overview of your users, new users, engagement time, things like that. And here we can see our users in the last 30 minutes, and we can see that 2 of those came from the United Kingdom. And you can see a full real-time report too. You can see some insights. So these are just automated insights. So if you just click on these will basically bring you up an automated report. And you can also see them from your new users, where they're coming from. You can see ours are coming, a lot of them are coming from organic, a lot of them were coming from referral, and a few are coming from ads, Google Ads as well. And then also what are your top campaigns. So you can see our top campaign is organic, and then also some country information as well. So this is just really insightful information, and it kind of goes on and on and on. And you can obviously see our top pages. And this is all on the home page. So sometimes you won't even have to pass the home page to find out the information that you want. You can go into your real-time report. So you can see here, obviously, these are where the people are coming from. So if anyone's viewed us in Salford, then hi. And then obviously all of your information too. Let's go on to acquisition. So a lot of the information that you will need can be found in the overview tabs of these different sections. So in acquisition, we can see our users versus our new users. I think I've got mine for the last 28 days. And you can, in this menu, choose whether it's like this week, last week, the last 7 days, and play around with it as well. And you can compare information and do custom date ranges as well. Maybe you ran a certain campaign for the last 5 days. You can start to compare that sort of information too.
Millie, just very
on
that, it might be worth actually, once we've gone through this data, I think it'd be great to perhaps have a little look at some like year-on-year and previous period comparisons, just so that we can see data progress, because I think that will really help link up with the reporting side of things.
Yeah, sure. We'll actually do that on the user acquisition tab next. So this is where you can start to see where your users are coming from. So here it just breaks it down really nice and easy. And what you can do is you can just take a quick screen grab of these reports, send them to your manager or send them to your boss, or have them for yourselves. Like, you can do whatever you want with this information. And what this will do is it break it down into all of the different areas that we need to see. So when we say none, that refers to people coming to us direct. So that's people coming straight to our site via a URL. Organic is obviously people coming through Google, Bing, any other search engine. Referral could be any type of sort of, whether you're working with a third-party site, email, sometimes it breaks it up, and also our ads and email too there. So let's look at some year-on-year data comparisons. So you can compare it to the preceding period or the same period last year, etc., etc. We'll just do it for the preceding period. So you can see here how we start to look at the data, and obviously the data at the moment says 0 because we don't we didn't have it set up back then, and it wasn't kind of getting that data. But what you can do is compare this to your universal analytics data if you just teeter between the two, but that's all there for you. I think it might be better if we do it for the last 28 days, then we can probably get a better date range. So it will give you your overall increases and decreases at the top based on these engagement metrics, but you can also see it versus the individual categories. So you can see that our organic traffic is down 9.5% from the previous 28 days and things like that. So this is all really useful information, and you know, Christmas time tends to skew data anyway, because you know, people are sort of turning their computers off a little bit early, but it's really good to see it on a yearly basis, the highs and lows, the peaks and the troughs, and actually where that traffic came from, and also how it compared to the previous year. And it's always good to see a year-on-year increase, I think. And then you've got your traffic acquisition via source medium. So you've got here, like I said, Google Organic, the wagada.co.uk is our main referrer, it looks like, LinkedIn referrals, etc., etc. So, you know, we can see all of that information. We can actually start to attribute work and sort of, like, we know that our social guys are putting in a lot of work at the moment. So, you know, it's good to kind of feed that back as well and say, you know, oh, we're up 18% on the last 28 days on LinkedIn. Well done. Like, keep going. What is it that we've done? Can we optimize upon this? And can we capitalize upon this growth? Moving on to engagement. Let me know, guys, as well, if there's anything in particular that you want to see, or any sort of data that in particular you want to see, or where to find it, and we can kind of try and find it together.
Millie, just very quickly, we've got questions, and I think they link together quite nicely. It might be worth chatting a little bit about kind of bit.ly links and track and how to track traffic from specific campaigns or URLs. Because we've got a question from Darren about Google My Business. It's kind of all coming back to sort of dirty data and things that might get grouped in different areas and so on. So Darren's asking about Google My Business traffic automatically getting tracked under user acquisition, or does it need to be set up separately? And a slightly different question, Rachel's asking about past data from Universal Analytics being transferred over.
Okay, so Google My Business data tracks as organic. So it would just come up as Google Organic because it is an organic listing and it shows up without being prompted to by any paid activity. So therefore that will come up by Google Organic. That's where you'll see that sort of data. And no past data from Universal Analytics will transfer over to GA4. Unfortunately, it will not. So that's why I recommend either exporting your data and putting it into like a Google Sheet or something that's really widely accessible to users, and you can invite people and stakeholders to that sheet, or just kind of keep it as a PDF. You can export them as PDFs and stuff like that. So unfortunately not, but if you do want that data, you want to keep that data, export it as soon as possible and start to migrate over to GA4 as soon as possible. I don't think the whole migration will happen for at least a couple of years, so you've got time. They will work side by side for a while, Universal Analytics and GA4. So it's not easy.
Well. Yeah, just on that, if businesses or any current clients of ours or businesses in here that don't yet have GA4 set up, the underlining thing is to not panic about that, because it's not obviously it's data information and not kind of performance. So in terms of priorities, it's about getting the transition absolutely right. So don't panic if you don't yet have this set up, and it's definitely something that will be a gradual process.
Yeah. And Vanessa, just going back to your question about what does a referral mean? So maybe you're running a referral project with potentially a third-party tool. Maybe there are these aggregator sites and things like that. The way that Google tracks referrals and things like that, it varies, to be honest. Like, they used to track referrals as emails, but now they track it as its own entity. So it's more than likely a third party tool or something that's sending you traffic, things like that.
Okay, thank you.
So we've got the engagement overview. So this is where you'll find all your new engagement metrics. So here you can see your average engagement time, average sessions per user, and average engagement time per user too. So we're being very open and honest here at WAGADA about our data today. And then obviously you can see your views and event counts, things like that. So these are all the events by events name. So these are all the enhanced measurements. So these are all the automatic ones that start to get tracked as soon as you set up your GA4. And you can see here that ours over the past 28 days as well. Then you can see your views by page title and screen class. So ours is mainly our homepage, followed by our digital marketing, then followed by some jobs, actually. And then you can see your user stickiness as well, but it's not really, it's not a report that I use on a day-to-day basis. And then here are your events. So this is the screen that I showed you on the presentation. So you can see here, I've still got my comparison on, and you can see our automatic page views that are getting tracked, user engagement, things like that. So we can look at this and start to map out, okay, so our user engagement has decreased by 30% in the last 28 days. Where has that user engagement decreased, and how can we actually start to map out how we improve that? And it might be that we haven't published a blog in a couple of weeks, or we haven't been doing our regular advertising, paid advertising, things like that, or we haven't posted on social for a couple of days. So this is where we can really start to map these decreases out and then feed that back to the team and start to make these changes. And then you've got your pages and screens as well. I'm going to turn my compare off for this. And here you'll see top pages in the last 28 days, and then also by this scatter graph as well. And then here's where you'll find your top pages and also your engagement metrics as well. So you can see how many new users are coming onto your site, views per user, engagement time, etc., etc. And also your conversions per that page as well. But we haven't got any of our custom conversions set up just yet. So this is where you can see all of your page data, any top performing blogs or pages in particular. That's where you'll find it.
Millie, just a quick question from Ian Morris about GA4 tracking of videos that are embedded from other sources. Do we still need to use the external tool to measure things such as video views, etc.? So I think that's if the content is embedded on the site.
Yes, so you will have to. So if the video is on YouTube, there is a recommended event that you can use on GA4 that will track the video views and stuff like that. So I can always send around the video parameters for videos. If the video is embedded on your site, there is also a recommended event for that too. So you can do it either way. There's lots of flexibility around it. So yeah, you can do it either way, either on a third-party tool and or embedded on your site directly.
Brilliant, thank you. We also had a quick hands up from Sharon, actually. Apologies if I missed that, but I think there was a hands up from Sharon. Did you have a question, Sharon O'Connor? No? No problem, I'll keep an eye. But there's just one more, Millie, that's come through. Event, enhanced measurement events. One of them is page views. What does this actually mean? Is it all page views or specific ones?
All page views. All page views, like an average page view per user is what it is.
Sorry, Millie. So is that kind of the new bounce rate?
No, so your engagement rate is your new bounce rate.
Okay.
So your engagement rate is the percentage of engaged users on your site. So instead of it being people who've bounced from your site, it's now people who have stayed and engaged. So it's kind of like the positive flip on bounce rate, essentially. It's a little bit more accurate and yeah, just a better.
So the events page views is how many pages each user looks at?
It's just a separate event and tracking metric as well. So your engagement rate is the percentage of people that are engaged on your site, and your page view is just how many people have viewed a page on your site. It's just an enhanced metric. So whereas before we had page views, sessions and things like that, this is now based on more of an event based style. So before, the sessions and page data was widely available. Now what you can see is general page views, and then under pages and screens, more granular detail on the page titles and things like that. So you can see that's 1691, and then under events, 1691 page views. So all this is the general stat, and then your page data is the more granular data off the back of that enhanced metric. So under the monetization report, you have your overview. This does require further setting up. Obviously, we're not e-commerce, but what we could do is we could set up an average lead value based on what we feel a potential lead could be worth coming through the website. Obviously, being in an agency, that varies, but if you're an e-commerce store or something like that, you could put you can attribute money against potential leads and stuff like that, and then start to track it in here. This does require further setting up, and I do have a guide on how to set this up as well, and if you do work with us, then we will set this up already for you on GA4. And then
again, Millie, because I think it's perfect timing with as you're going through the walkthrough. There was a question as well from Jenny about engagement rate, and actually and perhaps I think it goes in line with all of these really, in terms of what sort of rates and what sort of numbers we should be looking to achieve. And obviously that's quite subjective and varied, so maybe just a little bit of insight into how and again, you might cover that in objective planning really, but just to kind of mention that at this point.
Yeah, I definitely think we should talk about it now. I think with engagement rate, with bounce rate, we always said anything that's 50% and below is a good bounce rate. We don't want anything more than 50%. I think with engagement rate, I think because it's so new, it's hard to have a benchmark really, but I think anything over 50% is always good. Anything in life really, anything over 50% is good, but it's good to have, an engagement rate. You want at least half of the users that are coming onto your site to be engaged with your content, your website, whatever, and I think it's more the question of how many people are engaged, but how many of those engaged users are converting. And I think that's the question that we need to ask, because we could have an engagement rate of 40%, but actually we could have 100% of that 40% converting. So therefore it would be valuable. So I think it's just sort of whatever works for you as a business and how you benchmark yourself. I personally would aim for about 60 to 70% as a starting point, and then start to work my way up. It's always going to be so difficult to get 100% engagement rate, but I think you can sort of apply the same rules as you would to bounce rate to engagement rate really. Your monetization reports, your e-commerce purchases in app, they're sort of similar. They're more of the nitty-gritty stuff. Unfortunately, I have no data to give you in these because, like I said, we don't have these set up because we're not e-commerce or an app. Maybe one day, but not right now. Maybe we'll start selling merchandise. Dan, make a note of that. And then we've got retention overview, so we can sort of see just general user data against sort of new users and returning users. I think that's a really important metric as well, and to see actually how many people are actually returning and coming back to us time and time again, it's kind of reassuring in the same breath. And then you've got user retention by cohort, user engagement by cohort. These tend to become a little bit redundant personally to me, because I tend to find all of my data within the acquisition and engagement tab, so I rarely sort of venture over to this side, but it's also good to have, but we'll talk about more of this stuff further on when we sort of look at the advanced analysis that we'll go on to a little bit later. We've got demographics and tech as well, so sort of those nice to haves, and then you've got your conversion or events data there. If you just want to solely look at events, then you can find that in there too. So that kind of brings me to the end of the run through. I mean, I'm happy to go through anything else if anybody wants to see anything in particular. We are going back to GA4 in a little bit to talk about the advanced analysis reports and things like that, so you can have a play with them. But if anybody's got anything that they really, really burning want to see right now, How do we set up custom events, Joanna? Good question. So what you'll do is you can either set them up via GA4 or you can set them up via Google Tag Manager. But what I would suggest is looking at the recommended events first, because the recommended events are going to essentially set it up for you. They're going to give you everything you need to know about that event for you to easily implement it. I won't go into it now because it can get a little bit lengthy, but I can also send you some resources afterwards on how to actually set them up yourself. So let's talk about objective planning. So I want to ask you guys, how hard is your website working? Sometimes, and I was talking about this on the break, we sort of set up our website, we put everything into it for the first month. And then we sort of think, oh, okay, it's bringing in a couple of leads, you know, it's working hard, but then we sort of leave it and we don't sort of go back to it, and we stop paying attention to the information that is really, really important, that can actually redefine our strategies and objectives. But I suppose that's what WAGADA is for, to help it running, to help keep it running at 100%. So I want you guys to ask yourselves these questions. So, is your website working in line with your overall business objectives? Do you know that right here, right now, all of your traffic sources, all of your conversions, they're definitely working in line with your overall strategy and objectives? Do you know where your traffic is most likely to engage and drop off on your site, just off the top of your head? Do you know where your traffic is most likely to come from? And do you know what terms people are using to sort of get to your site? And do you know how many people have made a transaction, filled out a form, or converted in the last 30 days? I mean, I'm not going to put anyone on the spot and get them to give me that information right here, right now. But what I am going to say is, don't panic if you don't know that information. I don't think I know that information off the top of my head. I'd have to do some digging. But this is what Google Analytics helps with. It helps to build that picture and to develop your knowledge, as well as, you know, your overall team's knowledge of your site, and actually bring your strategies and objectives in line and mirror each other as well, because you don't want your website working against all the hard work that you're putting in off scene. So I've put together 5 steps for better objective planning with Google Analytics. And what I have started to first look at is, I want you guys to take a look at your current statistics. So I want you guys to kind of get to grips on how many sessions do you get on a month-by-month basis, and how many conversions, how well is your website working at the moment. I want you to also look at what your top acquisition sources are as well. I really want you to kind of get to grips on where everything's coming from, and sort of get a general consensus for your site too. And you can use this if you're using Universal Analytics. This is where I want you to start looking at that data on there. And if you're using GA4, like a couple of you are on here, then I want you to start looking at that data on there too. I then want you to do a little bit of reflection. Now, this isn't me putting you in a corner and telling you off, but what I want you to do is kind of reflect on whether the activity is in line with your overall business objectives and goals. Because some of the times what we can do is we can look at it and we think, oh my gosh, I wasn't even working on that part of my site and it's performing really well. Or, oh, I've now just paid for X amount to happen on this side of my site, but actually it doesn't even need it. And we can start to sort of reflect on whether what you've planned out for the year is actually going to be achievable with the state that your website is already in. So if you're not, then you can start to create some objectives that are actually achievable and that begin to mirror your overall objectives. So you can start to look at stuff like, okay, I want to increase my organic traffic by 10% year on year. And I want to do that via this, and this, because I found X, Y, and Z data that proves this needs to happen. Or you could say, you could do it more engagement focused and intent focused, and you can say, I want to increase my contact form submissions, or I want to increase my checkouts or my user retention by 5-10% year on year. And this is stuff that you can really start mapping out. And if you're starting from a fresh and you're sort of setting up a new site, then you can really start to map these out. And now's a great time to do it as well. January, new year, new you, new business goals. That's what I'm saying. And this is where you can start to sort of reflect and bring them more in line.
Millie, could you just on that, because I think it's really, really good as well, because obviously with it kind of goes outside of analytics as well in terms of objective planning. And we've got a question from Jenny again about what meaningful comparison with month on month, year on year, and perhaps let's talk a little bit about it in context in terms of when you might want to compare quarters, you know, Q1 versus Q2 and so on, but then also how seasonality comes into play. So what you should perhaps be looking at, or where you can be misled by comparisons.
Yeah, definitely. So there is a case of doing too much research and insight and actually kind of overwhelming yourself and diluting the messaging. So what I do is when I want to get to grips with something, when I want to kind of paint a picture for myself, I'll do a month-on-month comparison just to see how over the past couple of months it's either increased or decreased. So then I can get a picture of, okay, fine. Okay, from December to January, I've seen a 30% decrease, but that's fine. I know that now. Okay, cool. Then what I'd do is I'd look at it over a 12-month period and see the peaks and the troughs. So then I see, okay, oh, it's a common trait that in January, from December to January, we always see a decrease of about 30%. So I do that. Then what I do is I compare that to the previous year. So and then I'd see, okay, right, okay, it is a year-on-year thing. And then I'd start to look at seasonality as well. But if I'm doing, say, quarterly reporting, I will just do that quarter, take a look at the trends, maybe compare it to the previous year, and then sort of write up sort of a general consensus of what I feel. And then I try and resolve that. But if you're doing year on year tracking at the moment, stick with it. Maybe just every quarter start to reflect on the previous one and start to build that data. I think it's important that you do it regularly. It doesn't have to be month on month, but to find my feet with something, I personally prefer month on month tracking and comparisons and things like that, just because it gives you that sort of closer data, I guess.
I think just in line with that, month on month will give you the growth, so you'll get a feel for rise and fall, whereas in the short term, so if you've actioned something or you've done something in the short term, you get to see those growth trajectories. However, in terms of your overall objectives, perhaps that's where you start to look year on year, because it's when you're comparing like for like as well.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that's, as you say, Millie, it's how the two kind of work together, isn't it?
For sure. So then in step 4, I want you to then start to set up your goals and begin to track. So this is where you can either set up your enhanced measurement metrics and just stop there. That might be enough for you. Or you can start to venture into those recommended events that we spoke about, and you can start to set those up and go into a little bit more granular detail. And if you have that monetary value on your site, either e-commerce or whatever, you can start to implement that sort of stuff and really map out and say, okay, right, this is how much my user lifetime is worth at the moment. This is where I want to see it in October, November, right before Christmas. I want to see it at increased by 2-3%, ready for that seasonality change. But you know, this is all subjective completely to your business. And you know, if you've got any questions and you think, okay, right, I want to start getting a handle on my data a bit more, then just drop me a message and I can help you sort of map out how I would do it, create a little bit of a strategy for you. You know, we've got some templates that we can throw your way as well, and you can really start to implement this stuff for yourself as well. So feel free to sort of ask our opinion if you want it. Not everybody does. And then I want you guys to set up some dynamic reporting. Now this sounds a bit scary, but it's not. As someone who has worked in internal marketing teams, you tend to get higher pressures coming down on you, like, where's this? How's this performing? What's this doing? And as a business owner, you might be guilty of that. So I want you guys to create a report that is readily available, and you can use this either via Google Analytics for, as we saw, there's loads of charts and graphs that people are going to be it's going to be really easy for them to digest, or you can use Data Studio. Now, I'm going to chuck another tool at you. Data Studio is a Google tool. It's completely free. And what it is, it's dynamic reporting. And if you're one of our clients, you're on our books, you will be very well aware of what these pictures are at the bottom. But if you're not, they are the dynamic reports that we send out on a month-by-month basis. And what they basically do, they're on Data Studio. You can play around with the date range, and they visualize any changes across the site that you've seen on a month-by-month basis. So it's really, really simple and easy to kind of use. And if we have time, I'll just quickly run you through it. But essentially, it's a drag and drop You connect it with your Google Analytics. It's really, really simple setup. And then you start to drag and drop everything in, and you can start to visualize it in a way and brand it all up and stuff like that. So it's a really good tool to use, and it's collaborative as well, so you can have lots of people working on it, and also send it around, and everybody can understand it. So I've also put in the example of Google Sheets. So if you don't quite like the idea of Data Studio, you can use Google Sheets. Again, free tool. It's essentially Google's version of Excel. And what you can do is you can create a spreadsheet. You can put your whatever you want to track. Here I've just put total traffic acquisitions, sessions, and top page views. And then what you can do is you can invite as many people as you want to this report, and they can all collaboratively add to it, take away from it, and edit the report. And you just do this by creating the spreadsheet, pressing share, naming your document, and then sharing it with people either via email, or you can send them a link. And it's really just as simple and easy as that. And then everybody can kind of see it on a month-by-month basis. And like Excel, you can kind of put charts and graphs and stuff in there as well. So that finally takes me on to analysis and reporting. Now, what I don't want to do is, whenever I say analysis and reporting, it sort of makes it sound all technical and great. And this will kind of put you miles ahead if you do start using these reports and things, because they are great and they are readily available for you now. But I don't want to scare any of you, because what this is just accessible reporting, but it makes it sound a bit techy because it says advanced analysis, but all it is accessible reporting. So in Google Analytics 4, there is a new feature that was only available for Google Analytics 360 users. Now, what Google Analytics 360 is, it's just an advanced and techie Google Analytics. It's more for developers and things like, and data scientists and stuff like that. But now what Google have done is made advanced analysis widely available on GA4. So what this does is you can either create bespoke reports, or you can use some of their templates. I'm going to run through some of their templates for you, but it's just customizable reports that will drag in any data that you have on your Google Analytics 4, and you can sort of visualize it. So your exploration analysis is, it just displays any data in a table. So you can customize what data sets you want to see. Maybe you want to see your devices by your engagement metrics, and then you can add in like countries in there. So you want to see how people in China on mobile interact with your site. And you can start to play around with this data, and it's really, really interesting stuff, guys. And I don't think you should pass up on using these reports. And I'm actually going to show you on a live demo how to use them, because they're really, really useful. You can also change the data into bar charts, pie charts, line charts, or geo maps as well. So you can just export these data sets and these reports and send it to whoever, or have them for yourself to reflect on, and you can go back to them on a month-by-month basis, or quarter-by-quarter, year-by-year. Your funnel analysis, so this helps you visualize your user's journey through your site or app, and this uses funnels to help to optimize your user experience, and also to identify over and underperforming areas on your audiences on your site. So you could have one set of audiences that are just making conversion every single day, but then you might take a look at the underperforming ones and think, okay, what's the difference here, and start to map out that user journey and how to optimize it for the underperforming users. You've got path analysis. So path analysis actually helps you helps to display your user journey in a tree graph. And what this does is you can basically highlight the user journey, and it will show you where they've dropped off, what that looks like, what the drop off percentage is, and it's a really, really helpful report, and it will show you the most likely path of your users to across your site over a certain period of time. So it's a really, really good report, and really interesting actually, because it's good to visualize actually how your users are maneuvering through your site and what's the most likely user journey currently as it stands, and do you want to change that user journey too. You've got segment overlap. Now this takes me back to primary school because I haven't actually used a Venn diagram since then until this point. So this basically helps to show different user segments and how they relate to each other. So maybe you've got mobile data, mobile users over here, and you've got blog content over here, and you can basically use this report to see how they overlap. And you can see that, okay, maybe there's not too much of an overlap on mobile users in your blogs, but there is on your service pages. And you can start to really visualize that and actually see how appropriate and how relevant your content is versus different parameters and things like that. And it's a really interesting report. It just makes me think of primary school when I see a Venn diagram. And then we've got User Explorer. So User Explorer helps to show you the users that make up the segments that you can create on a report. So you can basically segment all your users and all your activities like that. And you can also drill down into individual user activities. And I think it was this report, when I did the internal training, I think it was this or another one, cohort, we actually managed to find, one of the guys in the team was like, oh, I actually know who that is. I think it might have been Dan. He was like, oh, I think I actually know who that is, just based off when they started viewing the site, what the sort of pages that they visited, and also how many times they've come back. And you can see that on an individual level. Obviously, it doesn't give you the person's name and all of that details, but what it does, it gives you a unique identifier, and I'll show you it, and you can sort of see how they're maneuvering across your site. And I think that's great for persona building, or just on a marketing tangent. You can sort of start to create these different personas for your site that that you can sort of implement across your marketing strategy. You then got your cohort analysis, so similar to the report that we viewed on Google Analytics 4. This basically helps you gain insight on behavior and performance across groups, or like related by common attributes. So you can have a play around with that as well. And then we've got user lifetime. So user lifetime analyzes user behavior and value over their lifetime as a customer. So this is great if you've got like a subscription-based model. I know that we have someone at the moment who does something like that. If you've got potentially like any e-commerce based platform or anything like that, or any platform that, you know, your user has some form of value. Obviously all customers have value, but you know what I mean. And then you've got other reporting options, just talking about Data Studio and Google Sheets as well. You can obviously use those, just export your data into them and kind of play around with it as well. So let's take a look at these reports. Now, I'm going to go back into GA4. And what I'm going to go down to is this Explore tab, and under Analysis, I'm going to go to Analysis Hub. And what I'm going to do on here is it will show me all of my my templates. So I've got my explorational funnel analysis, etc., etc. And you can just click on these and set it up yourself and start using them. But I'm just going to start on a blank template for now. And what you can do here is it will bring up 3 sections. You've got your variable, your tab settings, and then your exploration settings, or your table settings over here. So this is just the visualization aspect. So I'm just going to name my report template training. Then you can play around with your date range. I'm just going to leave it to the last 28 days. And then in here, we start to break everything down. So we have our segments, our dimensions, and our metrics. So this is where we can start to pick out what we want to start tracking and start to drop it in. So I want to have a look at device category on my rows. So here I can see my desktop, mobile, and tablet traffic over the last 28 days. But then what I can start to do is look at, you know, different metrics that I want to kind of cross-reference it with. So none of which I want to see here. Maybe I want to do countries. So in my column section, I'll do countries. But I can actually add way more, and there's so much that's widely available for you guys. So you can look at acquisition. So you can sort of see where things are coming from. So if we click event source and medium, we can add all of that in. So let's do event source here as well. And then what's this going to, it's going to kind of break it down for us. So we can see, okay, in the United States, a lot of our traffic comes from direct. In the United Kingdom, we can see that, okay, all of our Google organic traffic, we've got 93 people, active users coming from desktop, 26 coming from mobile. And then this will just break it down for you. You can really play around with it and actually customize it to what you want to see. And then you can also do, you know, your values as well. So at the moment we have active users, but what we can do in here is choose what we want. So maybe we want to do it by conversions or something like that, or sessions, and we can start to sort of look at that data based on our sessions across the site. So it's really interesting stuff, and I don't think you guys should skip on this. And I think, you know, play around with it and have fun with it, and that's what it's there for ultimately. And I don't know why they deprived us of it for so long. I'm going to check out User Explorer, because I'm pretty sure this is the one that allowed us to sort of do the individual analysis. You might see some of good if it loads. My internet is being so slow today. Does anyone have any questions, or will anybody sort of look to use these tools at all? Does anyone find this sort of stuff interesting?
We will definitely use them.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Cool. That's good to know. So you can see here, we've got all of these different numbers. And essentially, if you just click into it, you'll be able to see, and this is user activity. You'll be able to, when it loads, oh my gosh. I get so impatient.
This is when your boyfriend gets in trouble for watching a movie and
I know.
all the Wi-Fi in another
Get
room.
off! Oh man. Okay, it's still not loading. But anyway, what you'll see in this text, here we go, right on cue. So here we can see that somebody, we'll call them 955, has come on the website on the 25th of October 2020. So that's when we first saw them. And they're from Belper, and they have been using the WAGADA website G4. Right. Then here we can see every enhanced measurement metric that they've made on our site. So they've made 141 page views, 131 user engagements, and they've started 8 sessions. So then what we can do is we can look back through their time on our site all the way back to October, and we can see here they've maneuvered through the site loads, and they've gone through our site so they've come on the 20th of October, and they've come back all these times in all the way through to January, which was the other day. So it's really, really useful information. You can actually really start to, if you viewed 10 or 15 of these user activity reports, you can really start to pinpoint some really decent engagement metrics and actually really start to pinpoint, okay, this is how my users use my site. Okay, oh, that makes sense now. Like, oh, I know who that person is, and you can start to attribute behavior with conversions and things like that. And I just think I'm really nosy anyway, so I think stuff like this is so cool because it just gives me insight that I otherwise wouldn't have. But that is, in an essence, the reports. Obviously, I suggest that you play around with them, have a go, sort of play around with all the different metrics, add stuff in. You can't really break this stuff. And if you do, then we're on hand to pick up the pieces. But you can't break the reports, unfortunately. Well, you might be able to. Maybe some of you will. Try it. Let me know how you get on. So this kind of brings me to the end. So moving forward with Google Analytics 4, I suggest, first of all, you review any existing data that you have on your Universal Analytics. Just see how your website has been performing over the past year, the past couple of years, however long it's been live, and start to map out those goals for 2021. Now is the perfect time to do that. Then if you don't already, set up your GA4 and begin to track your automatic enhanced metrics, because what that's going to do, it's just going to give you, it's going to tick a box, it relieves some pressure, you don't have to set up anything yourself. If you then want to go and set up any recommended events or custom events, then you can do that. But what I would say is set it up, start tracking, even for a couple of months, and just keep an eye on it. And just remember that you can explore, you can test, and you can absolutely dig deep with this tool. Like I said, there's no breaking it. All you're going to do is probably find more and more about your website and not want to stop. So I suggest that you just spend the next hour even just going through it all. And with that, I say thank you and open the floor up to any questions that you may have. Anyone?
I'll jump in again, Mill. How are you? Well done, you. You're talking about the videos, and we have a lot of video content which will inevitably drive traffic to what we actually deliver. But they're all on YouTube, linked to our website. So you said that there was a way to, you recommended an event.
Yeah.
To track those. Have you got time to talk about that and how you could do that? Because inevitably that's all that matters to me.
It will be it will be a event parameter that you that you set up. So it will be within the recommended events on within GA4. So what I'll do is I'll send you all of that through, and then it's essentially you just setting it up via Google Tag Manager, or getting a developer to set up the custom event or the recommended event for you. But it's a bit more complicated than just saying, okay, I want to set up metrics on video. It's, okay, I want to track plays and pauses. I want to track skips. I want to track how many times someone, I don't know, makes the screen larger, things like that. It's lots of different variables that will actually make up the event. So what you'll have to probably map out, and what I recommend that you do, is make a list of everything that you want to track on the video. So plays and pauses and skips probably would be my big thing, or video watch percentage. And then with the recommended event parameters that I'm going to send through, check to see that they're already available. And then when you're ready to start setting that up, I would either try and set it up yourself. There's no harm in that. Or if you sort of want it done without any potential mistakes, then you can send that over to a developer and then they can set that up for you.
Thank you.
No worries.
Okay, Millie, this question probably follows on from that one that David just asked. We've got loads and loads and loads of podcasts on our website, and we embed them through SoundCloud, and then we use PodTrack as well. But none of the tracking tools for podcasts seem to let us know in any great detail anything other than plays or streams. They can tell us downloads, but they won't tell us, the elements that you just mentioned there. So pauses, how long it gets into a video, catching it, or right parameters can tell us later on podcasts.
Well, can you just repeat? You started cutting up as soon as you started asking the question then.
Sorry. Quick question is, can GA4 do the same for podcasts as it can do for video? Because we cannot find out at the minute through either PodTrack or SoundCloud how far people are getting through a podcast.
So I don't actually know off the top of my head is the short answer, but with GA4 being as flexible as it is and advanced as it is in terms of custom metrics, there will be a way, I'm sure, of tracking this, whether it's a button click or sort of a similar parameters as the video. But I mean, let me do some digging and I'll send over what I can find to you.
That is something we definitely need help with, because no tool seems to be able to do it for us currently.
I'm pretty sure that it will just work and operate as the same way as the videos. It might just be where it's hosted and where it draws that tracking information in from.
Perfect, thank you.
Millie, we got a great question as well come through on the chat from Victoria Thompson about the transition. So is it true that the current analytics interface will seamlessly evolve into Analytics 4 in time, or is it an upgrade now or you'll lose your data situation? I ask as our reporting runs to our financial year, so could do with waiting to change it until the current financial year ends. So about the transition.
Okay, so it's going to be a slow process. It's not that if you don't set it up right now, you lose everything next week. You've got at least a couple of years, I think, until you start to see that merger happening. If you can do it now, I would, but if you need to wait, or you have to wait, or you want to wait until the next financial year, then 100% do that, because it's not going to happen next year. It will be at least a couple of years, and they will coexist until that transition happens. And it's not just something that they're going to take away from you overnight. It's going to be something that they introduce slowly over time. So they'll give you lots of, and we will too, lots of heads up as to when you need to start exporting data and saving data and things like that.
Also a couple more on the chat, Millie. Yeah, absolutely. Emily, do feel free. Emily Hawkins is just asking about getting in touch with more questions. So you'll get a follow up and you'll have all our contact details on that as well.
Yeah, I'll put my email back up, shall I? There's all my contact details. You can catch me on there. I'm always on my phone, so I won't miss your emails.
Hey, Millie, I've got a really quick question. Firstly, thank you so much for the session. That was really, really useful and insightful as well. I learned a lot. I have a quick question about like device tracking on like on the user explorer bit where you can see what each user has done on the website. I'm guessing if they're logged into their Google account, like it'll merge what they're doing on mobile and on their laptop as well. Is it the same case that if they're not logged in and like they pick up a random phone, like naturally it won't be able to track them, right? Because I don't know how it would, but is there a way?
So it will, I'm pretty sure if they're not logged in based on their previous activity, it will class them as a new session or new user, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Yeah, I'm 100% sure that it would do that. But then you have things like IP address and stuff like that. So I guess it depends. Say if they're not logged in and they're in a completely new location and they pick up a completely new phone and they start using a website, then that user, even though it's the same person, will be counted as a new, user.
Yeah. But it'd be scary if they knew that, right?
Yeah, exactly. But if they're not logged in but in the same location and displaying the same activity, then it's most likely that they will be tracked as a new user, as an existing user.
Perfect. Thank you.
No worries, thank you. Also, guys, just going to plug my colleague's next event. So on February, he's just put some details in the chat. Dan will be running a social media event, isn't it, Dan? I'll let you explain a little bit about that.
Yeah, so thanks, Millie. That was a great session. Really, really good. 24th of February, 9:30 a.m. So same sort of time, 2 hours. We're going to be looking at how to create an effective social media advertising strategy. So that is predominantly Facebook and Instagram ads, but it's appropriate for B2B or B2C. And we'll give you some insight into how actually Facebook and Instagram can harness some really good results in B2B as well. But we're going to look at direct advertising, remarketing, sort of audience targeting, sales funnels. It's perfect for, if you're already doing social media advertising to a degree and you want to take it up a notch. But also even if you're at an introductory level and you want to get some insight into the opportunities or how it might fit within your wider marketing plan, it's going to be perfect for that as well. And as you can see from today, our training is very down to earth and we make it as digestible as possible. So I'm sure there'll be something for everybody. So, but Millie, we'll put the details in the follow-up email. So, so you'll have all of that as well.
Sure.
Can I just ask quickly? I think my question got lost on the chat. For Data Studio, do we just log on with the same details that we use for our Google Analytics, and then does it automatically pull it through?
Yeah, so that's actually a really good question. So every Google platform that you use, so the Google account that you use for analytics needs to be the same Google account that you use for Tag Manager, Data Studio, and all of that stuff, because what Google Data Studio will do is it will recognize the accounts that are the analytics accounts that are attached to your Google account. So when you go to set it up, it will give you all these different options to say, okay, connect via Google Analytics and stuff like that. So
okay, because I just looked at it and so it automatically went to my personal account, and I was like, oh, so do I need to add on my work one, basically?
Yeah.
Okay.
The one that's attached to the Google Analytics already. Well,
cool. Okay, thank you.
But yeah, like I say, guys, any other questions, please just email me and I'll be happy to help, or just pop me a message on LinkedIn and I'll be happy to assist you.
What I will just say as well, you might want to take a moment, if anybody did want to access the chat at the bottom, and you hit the 3 dots in the bottom right, and you can save that, so that if you did want a manuscript of the chat, which is all public anyway, because it's the public chat that we've been utilizing, just open that up now before the training session closes, hit save chat from the 3 dots at the bottom, and it will save it as a feed for you, so that you can access those who have shared their contact details for networking purposes, but also see some of the previous questions and things as well. Brilliant. So I think, does that about round it up?
I think so, it does.
Fantastic. Well, listen, thank you ever so much. Thank you, Millie. That was superb. And no, based on, we've had some fantastic, I haven't been reading it all out because, but we've had some wonderful feedback on the thread as well. So thank you everybody for that. I'm so glad that people have found the training to be beneficial. We will follow up with the full deck. As I say, there's also been a recording of this, and we'll also give you some details on the next training session that we've talked about and how to book in for that. Millie and I will stay on this feed for another few minutes if anybody did want to stay and ask any questions in a slightly smaller environment. But otherwise, Millie, I'll just leave it to you to sign off.
Thanks so much, everyone, for coming, and really appreciate, like I said, you taking your time out of your day, out of your homeschooling or whatever other roles that you're playing at the moment to attend this course. So, no. It's really been nice having you. For my first training event, you guys are the best audience ever at WAGADA. Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.